In this last video, you'll learn the third way to solve a quadratic formula, and that is by factoring. So you can think of this as part 3 of a trilogy on quadratic equations. Now, hopefully you remember what a quadratic equation is, and if you don't, it's just an equation where x squared is the highest power. Now, when do you factor? You factor when there is a bx term. So remember, if there is no bx term, you do the square root method. If there is a bx term, first try to factor it. If you can't do it easily, just do the quadratic formula. But factoring is huge because it can make your life a whole lot easier, because you don't want to be doing the quadratic formula every time. Also, it'll become very useful for you down the road in your next math classes that you take. So again, when there is a bx term and the equation is factorable over the integers, the best way to solve is by factoring. So first, factor the following equation. So one thing I want to point out is that that is not a negative sign. That's just a bullet. So let's just cover that up. Now to factor something, a trinomial, alright, trinomial means it has 3 terms, x squared, 8x, and 12. You use the guess check method. So first, it's sort of like foiling, but going in reverse. So you write the 2 brackets out, and you put an x here and an x here. Now you only do that when the first term is x squared, and you're only going to factor when the first term is x squared. So you don't want to, if it's a 2x squared or a 3x squared, if there is any number in front of x squared, or any number for a other than 1, you want to use the quadratic formula. But if the number in front of x is 1, like it is here, you want to try to factor it. So you put x there and x there, because if you were to FOIL, right, do x times x, you would get x squared. So now we need to look for 2 numbers to put here and here that multiply to 12. So let's write out all the possibilities. We got 1 and 12. We also have 2 and 6. We also have 3 and 4. And there's also negatives. You can also get -1 and -12, -2 and -6, or -3 and -4. All of those sets of numbers add up to 12. Now the reason why it's called guess and check is now you have to figure out which one works. So pretty much you're plugging those numbers back in, multiplying it out, those 2 binomials, and seeing what will give you 8x squared plus 8x plus 12. Now there is a little shortcut. If you did it, wrote out all your possibilities correctly, wait, we got 6 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, then you look for the one that will add up to give you the middle term, or the b term, which is 8. So pick which one adds up to 8. So hopefully after looking for not that long, you see that it's this one right here, because 2 plus 6 is 8. So now we know that this number right here will be a plus 2, this number right here will be a plus 6, and we just factored 8x squared plus 8x plus 12, and that will equal 0. Now, if you ever want to check, just multiply it back out. So again, do x times x is x squared, and then try x times 6 is plus 6x, and then 2 times x is plus 2x, and then 2 times 6 is plus 12, so equals 0. Combine like terms, and you'll see, oh, that's just what we started with. X squared plus 8x plus 12 equals 0. So, how does that help us solve a quadratic equation? Well, let's find out. Now, you may or may not ever heard of this, but you definitely know this. And what this is the zero product property. And that states that AB equals 0 if A or B equals 0, which pretty much means anything times 0 will equal 0, which you know. So, when you're factoring, you use that zero product property to your advantage to help you solve the equation after factoring. So, let's go back to our equation right here from the previous slide. And we already factored it. We saw that it was x plus 2 times x plus 6 equals 0. Now, if you look at the zero product property, you can think of x plus 2 as A and x plus 6 as B. And we know that they both multiply together to give us 0 because of the 0 right there. Well, if A or B equals 0, then this is true. So one solution to this equation could be the number that makes x plus 2 equal to 0, which that will lead us, if x plus 2 equals 0, and you subtract 2 on both sides, you get x equals -2, which is our first solution of this quadratic equation. And it makes sense because if you plugged -2 back in to the equation, you'll get that it's true. Because -2 plus 2 is 0 times +4 equals 0 is true. We get 0 equals 0. Alright, and you don't have to do that bottom part. I was just trying to show you why it worked. Now, we take the other factor, x plus 6, set that equal to 0, and solve. So subtract 6 on both sides, and you get x is -6. And that is our final answer. Well, our final two answers would be x equals -2 and x equals -6. Boom. So, I want you to try one right now. So look at this problem. Try to factor it. Try to solve it. Hit pause before you do any of that. And then hit play, and I'll show you how to do this. Alright, well, hopefully you tried that problem, or maybe you got stuck. No worries, you just started learning this. But if you didn't, these first two things I have written here is just something you should get in the habit of doing when factoring. Writing out the two parentheses with x in them to show, alright, I know I got half the battle. I know that x times x equals x squared. Now I got to figure out it's x plus or minus what to get 9, and then my middle term of -10. And to figure out, you're using a guess and check method, but you can narrow it down to 4 possibilities. 1 and 9, 3 and 3, -3, -3, and -1 and -9, because all of those numbers multiply to 9. So you got to pick which one adds up to -10. So since you see that little negative sign there, that's a hint that you should probably be using negative numbers. So we could cross these two off the list. And if you look, -1 plus -9 does give us -10. So that is our solution. So we factored, we're not done yet, but the factored version of x squared minus 10x plus 9 plus 9 is x minus 1 times x minus 9. So it's factored. Now, to figure out what x is, we're going to take x minus 1, set equal to 0, and we get x equals +1. And then take x minus 9, set equal to 0, and you get x equals 9. And both of those solutions would work in that equation. And if you don't believe me, let's try one real quick. Let's try number 1. If we plugged number 1 back into the original equation, x squared minus 10x plus 9, we would get 1 squared minus 10 times 1 plus 9. 1 minus 10 plus 9 does come out to 0. So that's one way to check your answer. Plug it back in. You should also check the other one too. I'm not going to because, I don't have to. I don't feel like doing that. But you should. Alright. One more. So if you're feeling confident, try to do this one. One hint is make sure it's in standard form first. And if once you're stuck or you think you got it, hit play and I'll show you the solution. Alright, hopefully you're about to watch a solution that looks exactly like yours. So what I've written so far is, first right here, I got my equation into standard form by subtracting 21 on both sides. So now I'm here where I have x squared plus 4x minus 21 equals 0. To figure out how to factor it, I want to look for two numbers that multiply to give me -21. So there's 4 different sets. You got 1 and -21, -1 and 21, 3 and -7, and -3 and 7. Now look for the one that adds to 4. So after doing some investigation, hopefully you see that, -3 plus 7 gives you 4. So now we're here. X minus 3 times x plus 7 equals 0. Once you factored it, that's the hard part. The easy part is now finding the solution. So you take your x minus 3, set equal to 0, and you get x equals 3. And you also take the second factor, x plus 7, set equal to 0, and you get your other solution, x equals -7. So, those are two solutions. Hope that helps. Hope this video helps. Hope you're a master at factoring. If you're not, watch someone else's video. Hopefully you'll be better. Alright, have a good one, and that's it.